Hello and welcome.
You didn't start it off right,
okay,
Danielle.
Sorry. Hello and yeehaw and welcome. If you're wondering why I'm saying yeehaw, okay, so
Please go to DKWstyling.com and watch this.
Today was a hat day because literally right before we were deciding to do the podcast, I'm like, I'm going to throw on a quick toner, That's like a 5-minute no. And then I'm like throwing on a toner, like I'm smudging my roots, and then I'm like, maybe some low lights. How about a smudge? And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not going to make it to the podcast at the time that I told Ani. I literally am like texting her. I'm like, hey, yo, we're going to have to do a little bit later. But then you text me and you're like, still 11:30, still 11:30. And I'm like, yes. And I'm like thinking there's no way I can get my hair blow dried. So I blow dried just the front, okay? So that it looked dry. And I even round brushed it a little bit. And I have these stupid, annoying postpartum bangs that are growing out and they're just ridiculous. Anyway, I throw on a hat. And usually if I do a podcast in a hat and I have a baseball cap on, this is not funny. I get here.
You look like a weird cowboy with a 10-gallon hat on.
Right? It's
Yeehaw,
this
motherfucker.
This is my favorite beach hat because it's you don't even have to wear sunscreen. It covers so much of your face. And so I get here and I was like, oh, the headphones will not go on with this giant ass hat. So anyways.
But I want everyone to know, hold up. She tried to put the headphones on over the hat. It just didn't work.
It didn't work. And Ani goes, and when I took my hair off, she goes, you look homeless. Your hair's all smashed. She's like, I'm going to ask you to put the hat on over the headphones. I was like, is it that bad? I'm like, really? So then I tried and this is what it looks like. So yeehaw and welcome to episode 124.
I want a screenshot of this, please.
Yep, don't screenshot that.
Someone screenshot it.
Okay, so anyways, now that we got a good laugh out, and
my God, my stomach hurts.
Now I know that I need to wear a baseball cap if I'm going to wear a hat to the podcast.
It was still a little cute with your outfit, though.
I know, I have a dress on. I was like, look, this is
you have your fake Chucks on. Boo. No.
Fake Chucks.
I just want everyone to know they're like Dior Converse, basically.
I'm taking them off, and I'm going to show them to you guys because I have them in 3 colors. Okay, today on the CVC channel. What is it?
I almost said CVS.
CVS, not CVS.
QVC.
Today on QVC, we're demonstrating a lovely Dior Chuck. It's got a lovely cotton insole that almost feels like you're wearing a sock. It's very lightweight, very comfortable. Your feet are really going to breathe in it, ladies. We're having a buy one, get one. No, we're not. Okay. Anyway, these are amazing. And
I did not breathe.
this shows shenanigans for right now. I love wearing a dress with sneakers. It makes me feel like a girl and kind of a boy. So that's what I do. Okay.
Man, what is happening today?
Sorry. Anyways, hope you had a good laugh.
It hasn't even been 3 minutes. It's fine.
It's fine. So let's start the show.
Welcome to the Big Money Stylist Podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Ani. This is Danielle K.
Thanks. Usually I'm like, Anianne Rivera. Yeah.
Thought I'd switch it up today.
It's a good party.
But
okay.
Man, so
every week we're like, what should we talk about? We come to you guys super real and raw and what's going on? What should we talk about? We've had so much going on with COVID. Our message has kind of been hey, use this time wisely. We've done a ton. I feel like I got a lot more organized in my business. I'm actually super excited to open back up and have things start rolling. So,
one of our students messaged me. She's like, hey, I made $17,000 in 3 weeks. I'm like, I'm sorry. 17 grand in 3 weeks. She goes, I'll never do this again, but I made 17 grand
but
in
isn't
3
it cool?
fucking weeks.
Here's what and I know we have another topic to talk about, but isn't it cool because when the pressure is on, people show up differently. And I know for me in my life, in the moments and areas that I've had success is because the pressure was on. Mm-hmm. And it was do or die. And I was like, if choosing to sink or swim, what am I going to do? I'm going to swim.
Always.
And so I think it's cool.
But I've been that way too, because even when I started inside of your program in BMS, I had to put it on a credit card. I didn't even have money to do it, but I knew I'm like, okay, that's a risk, but are you really going to let yourself drown? No, you'll do everything.
It's an investment. It's an investment.
It is what it is.
Right.
And it was the best investment I ever made. So
what is so crazy too is, so my classes are not super cheap. In the hair world, our conventions are $5,000. In the hair world, that's a pretty substantial, in any world, that's a pretty substantial, that's a hefty ticket.
That's like a Tony Robbins ticket.
That is. I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's a good ticket. So anyways, but for hairdressers, the mindset is, and not even for hairdressers, I could probably say for a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, an event that's $500 is a lot to people, $1,000, whatever it is. And I worked really hard to get to this place and where I'm like, I'm going to charge $5,000. And what's interesting is the service of Natural Beauty Rose is a minimum of $2,000. We go from anywhere to $2,000 to $5,000 for a full set of Natural Beauty Rose. So I'm kind of okay, even in the beginning, if you're just starting out and your prices are lower, 2 sets of NBR.
Even if you're only charging $1,500, that's already $3,000.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say 3 sets. If you did 3 sets, just 3. If you don't believe in yourself enough to think that you can't get at least 3 clients, please don't come take my class. I'm just going to be real right there. And I sometimes I sound like a big giant a-hole, but it's if you get out of your head and you stop like being like, I'm not going to pay that. And you logically look at it like, well, what do they charge? How can I do it? How can I make it? How can I swim versus sink? Then you can make it happen for yourself. And you stop like getting in your head about like, how dare they charge $5,000 or the other way of like, I can't pay $5,000, like whatever it is, you have to logically think about it.
Because it's more than just learning one color method. It's something that you continue to grow on, and it makes you so much money.
Well, it's like school. Like if you go, I mean, hair school now is anywhere from like 15 to 20 grand. When I went,
paid 22.
Yeah. See, when I went, I paid 8. It was back in the days.
Gee.
But yeah.
All right, Flintstones.
Seriously. And, but yeah, even then it's just like, well, you don't ask, can I get a discount on this, on hair school? Because I think I'm just going to do half the services. I don't really want to do all the other stuff you're teaching me. I'm only going to focus on colors. So can I do it for $4,000 instead of 8? That'd be great.
I bet you someone's done that.
I'm sure they have. I'm surprised I didn't do it. But but what I'm saying is like we don't ever try to barter when it comes to like a skill set or a cosmetology school, right? Mm-hmm. Like we don't. And so I just think it's silly. Like I had to kind of go in that mind frame even for myself. And it took me a while because when I first started teaching, it was only like in my online course was like $400.
Yeah, I think by the time I paid in 2015, it was like $795.
Right. And that's what's so funny is, and I know a lot of artists, they even to say behind the chair as they get faster at their skills, they never change their prices. And you're like, clients are paying you for your
expertise.
Yes. They're not paying you for the time. Like you have been doing hair, you've updated your education. Like they're paying for your overall 15 years of experience or whatever it is. So I even had to remind myself as I was doing classes, like I have to charge more because it's giving them a skill that they literally can use for as long as they choose to do hair. And just to give you guys the vast difference of most people when they do a cut and color is $250. Like, I don't care where you are nationwide. You could spend, that's what I'm saying. Like, I remember when I moved to Gilbert, Arizona, and I was like, I guess I'll charge like $165 for a color because we moved to kind of like a smaller town, and I was like, whatever. The girls that were doing cuts and colors, like I remember clients coming to me and they're like, oh, my girl does it for $100. And I was like, I can't charge less. I've already been charging more in Salt Lake City, and then I'm like, I can't charge less. Yeah. So just to give you guys an idea, like you go say across the nation, you're going anywhere from $100 to $600 to set. Maybe LA's charging more like $800 for a color. Maybe New York, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To extensions, I don't care where you live, you can charge a minimum of $1,500, $2,000. And that's what's so crazy to me is I'm like, it's not like a small service. So if I give you a skill that now you can quintuple it or whatever your
quintuple
your revenue, yes, then the skill set itself is worth it. And so anyways.
Well, but I think a lot of people hear that, and especially because like, yes, you started in Utah, then you went to Arizona, now you're here. But I think it's very easy for people to see us where we are now. But I started in Missouri. Like, don't get it twisted. I've only been in California for 2.5 years. Right. I started in Missouri in this little town in my own suite. And by the time I moved here to come work at DKW, I was charging DKW prices. Right. Because I could. My work was good. My clients kept paying it. I had people flying in or driving 10 hours to come get their hair done. I could. So I did.
Well, and I feel like your progression is as fast as you're willing to take it. And you were like, you were committed. You were like on the fast track. You're like, give me more, give me more, give me more. Mm-hmm. So we'll have students like that they're just, you put them in the same swimming pool at the same time, but one is like, boom, like an Olympic swimmer. And the other one, they're like, but I can barely doggy paddle. And you're like, well, just because you're putting in the time doesn't mean you're putting in the work.
And that is a huge thing. And I feel even, because obviously we have a set of 3 trainers now and then 4 trainees that are like working to be on the team with us. And I think it's being a trainer, it reminds me, it's very similar to almost being like a salon owner. Like you pour so much, and any kind of business owner, like truly any kind of business owner, you pour a lot and you do a lot and you help a lot, and it's draining, but it's also amazing. Right. And I know we have so many, salon owners, and even with that, they'll be like, well, I don't understand. Like, I trained her, she stayed with me, and now all of a sudden she left to go build her own thing, and she's like, oh, well, fuck you, you're the worst, and I hate you, and you are terrible. And it's like, wait, hold up a minute. Yeah. I taught you everything. Like, you were my assistant. I gave you clients. I taught you marketing, taught you all these things. And all of a sudden you leave and now you're like, nope, I hate you. You're dead to me.
It's so hard though in our industry where it's like, where do you toe the line? You're like, I'm your mentor. And then they get to this place where like, I think I passed my mentor. And you're like, you're cute. Go try it on your own. And as a mentor, you have to sit back and you're kind of irritated too, but you have to take the higher. I mean, at the beginning, I didn't take the higher road. I was like, you're fucking dead to me. But now I have to tell myself, I'm like, no, you need to acknowledge where you're at and let them go figure it out. You know what I mean? If they think they're at that level, then game on, motherfuckers. Like, let's get this show on the road. Go do classes, go teach, go own a salon, go do this. And I think I realized like early on in my career, like when I would see people, you know, I'll just use like LA for an example, and some of the big salons and the big people on like Pinterest and YouTube and that I was following. I was like, my work's that good. And then I had to have a minute, and I was like, your work's not that good. Not only is your work not good, you're not there on a business level that they are, or you would be there. And and so for me, I was like, well, fucking game on. And I was like, how do I get there? And I got this hunger and I got this drive, and that's kind of like what always pushes me is like, how can I get better? But then there's the flip side to it.
Yeah, and even with the flip side, because I have no issue looking at my work and being like, that could have been better. Or this could have been better. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think in order to progress and be better, you have to. But my real big but with that is it takes so much accountability. It takes a ridiculous amount of accountability. We have our marketing, we call it the Daily 4. And we have students who are like, but I do it and I'm not getting clients. I'm like, yeah, you're doing it, but are you doing it with intention? Are you doing it with quality? Are you doing it with value? Like, how well are you actually executing the task that you might just, with Danielle always says, just like marking off a checklist. It doesn't work that way. So for an artist to really look at their business, look at their marketing, look at the hair they do and say, okay, I could improve here, it takes a vast amount of accountability. And also being like, you know what? I didn't do fucking well. Hey, you know what? I got fired from the job. Instead of being like, well, fuck her, my boss, because she's a bitch, this and that. Okay, how about maybe you didn't show up on time? How about maybe the quality of work you were putting out wasn't great? How about maybe you were an a-hole and you were starting drama?
Right.
But it's so much easier to look at someone else and say, you're the problem. This happened to me because of you, because you don't like me, or because you, as opposed to being like, you know what? I respect the decision that had to be made. I know I played my part in it.
And I think that's like one of the things that's kind of been hard for me, like as a business owner and a salon owner, is you get like so connected to people and you want it for them. And then you can feel the energy shifting and changing. And that you kind of like have to be like, okay, well, for me, I like to give people like, if I'm changing my business, I'll say, hey, I'm going to, increase commissions, or I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, so that if you don't want to do it, then you have the choice to leave instead of just being like, you're fired. Or like, it's like I give you expectations to hit. And if you don't hit them, even at my salon, and say with the assistants or the artists, like we have a write-up policy, right? Yeah. And it's like, hey, if you don't clean up or if you don't do this, it's not, I'm not your mom, I'm not your babysitter, I'm not going to sit here and nag you. You know what you have to do. If you don't do it, you get written up. If you get written up 3 times, you're letting yourself go. I'm not firing you. You're letting yourself go. And forever, people will be like, she's cold. She's a bitch. I'm like, no, I'm a businesswoman. And I've had to dry my tears and think about things more logically and go about it to where I feel like everybody has a win-win situation. And I understand in my brand, I have past students and people that are like, don't do it. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the this, and this. But I have hundreds of students that have killer results, even the ones that don't like me and even the ones that talk shit on me. I'm like, guess what? I can sleep just fine at night, not thinking anything about you, because I know that the skills that I taught you are still bringing in income to this day. So you can take time out of your busy schedule and you can obsess about what I'm doing, what my company's doing, and this and that. I'm not thinking about you. But I know that I've impacted your life, and I know that the skills, whether you like me or not, are making a direct impact on you and your income. So I would invite you to let it go.
And you know what? I'll say it's very, very hard. It really is, not to let it go, but being a trainer. So I've been here for 2.5 years now, and in the beginning, it is about you almost like you want to be liked, like you want to be best friends with your students, like you want there to be almost that camaraderie and that like group and like, right. And there was that some days and there wasn't. And when I first came here, I measured my success as a trainer based on how many students like me. I will never.
Like, am I popular?
Yeah, I will never forget the day Garrett looked me in my face and he's like, they are not your fucking friends. Get over it. And I was like, like it was a punch and I think that was like in a huge event, like it was a punch to my gut, and I was like, wait, what? And obviously, like, you're right, like let's just address the elephant in the room. There are tons of people that don't like me. That's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm aware at this point, like you meet me and you either love me or you're like, what the no, and you don't like me at all. And it took me probably the better part of 1.5 years, 2 years to really come to the realization that you don't have to like me. Like, honestly, it's okay. I wake up every day. I show up to the best of my abilities. I treat people the best that I possibly can. Like, I show up in a way that when I go to bed, am I proud of myself? Am I good with me and the work that I put out, my work ethic that I put forward, how I talk to people, how I treat people, how I train people, the friendships that I have? Like, do I go to bed and sleep good at night? And if I do, then I'm good with how I showed up.
I think that's so cool, though, because I think of a lot of times where, if for some reason this is coming to mind, I remember I was actually at a Tony Robbins event, and he was like talking about this crazy lady who like he like kicked out of his program, and he's like like you're out, and it's like his smaller, I can't remember what it's
like
called.
A mastermind.
Yeah, it's like his mastermind. But anyways, this lady like showed up. They were in like Tahiti or somewhere, and she's like, I'm coming, and he was like, holy nut job. And he talks about how he's like, you know, she like bashed me on this and this, and like was like going after me, and he's like, but you know what? I knew that I over deliver. You know what I mean? He's like, so I had a straight up conversation with her when crazy lady showed up in Tahiti or wherever they were. He was like, can you look me in the eye and say I didn't deliver this, this, and this? And she was kind of like, well, yeah. And then so he's like, so what? And he gave her a chance to like talk and vent and share her feelings. And then he ended up letting her into the room because he's so nice. But I was like,
I don't think I would have done
that. I know, right? But I was just like, that's what I think of whenever I'm doing my events is, and it happened in the beginning of my career when like students were having success. I was like, it tore my little heart. I was like, but why? And so I always went back to, in the beginning, I wanted to be like, well, screw you, it's you. And instead I was like, you know what? If I go to bed at night, if I know that I'm like giving everything I can, if I'm over delivering to them, then I feel like I did my part. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel like good about things. If somebody doesn't like me, they don't like my system, they don't like my tribe, they don't like my business, I'm like, I know that I over delivered. I know this is a process that works. Again, I know that so many people are having a lot of success, you know?
And that's really what I ended up kind of changing my mindset to. Instead of being like, I'm liked, I'm winning. Well, not really. There are a ton of shitty trainers that are probably really well liked. Right. I started looking at it as, okay, my result as to tell me that I'm a good trainer is the success. Like, to me, for me to have success as a trainer is for my students to have success.
Right.
So at that point, I realized you don't have to like me.
Right.
But what you do have to have is results. Right. I want you working less, making more money. And that point, NBR, not whatever, it doesn't matter, but marketing on point. And that's why when people come to me and they're like, did you know that so-and-so said this thing about you and that they hate you? And I'm like, okay, but yeah, look at her cool ass life.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Because with all due respect, I've been here since 2017. I have trained thousands of students that have come into 4 conventions, all the NBR intensives, all the BMS intensives. And let me tell you, even the ones that have left and been like, Ani's fucking crazy, I don't like her at all. I'm like, yeah, but look at your business. Yeah. Because I'll be damned if your life isn't completely different.
And I'm like, I know that I made an impact. So whether you like me or not, I'm like, that's fine. I would challenge you to just like move on. Even if you don't want to, even if you want to say you offer ShmMBR now, I don't care. Don't give a shit. Do whatever gives you mental peace and clarity and move on with your life. Like it's going to just drag you down. And I've had situations in my life where I was like, I hate her. She's this and this. And then I'm like, I don't need this negative. I don't need this. It's getting in the way of what I need to focus on in my business. And so I became very result driven.
Well, and it's what's fascinating to me is that the people who they're like, I don't care about you. Fuck you. I don't care. And they're like, but did you look at her Instagram today? Oh my God, did you see what Danielle's wearing? Did you see what Ani's doing? Did you see what NBR did? And it's like, wait, you don't even like me. Why do you keep stalking me, you little psychopath? Because let me tell you, if I don't like you and the shit that I see on my social media doesn't inspire me or doesn't make me laugh, or it's not like a cute baby animal, you're out. And I don't care.
And there's been times where my business has taken some turns. I'm not gonna lie. Like I had my husband involved and his message is a lot more aggressive because he owns a company called Wake Up Warrior. Mm-hmm. And there's some times in my business where it's like taken some turns and there was a really rocky year. Everybody who was involved in any of my education knows about the rocky year. And I just was like, I gotta unfollow. This voice came to me as like, unfollow any hair. So like on my one account, I was like, I had so much like negative energy, like the phone was like sucking me into it, this dark hole. And I was like, I don't want to follow anything that's going to trigger me. It's not even about this person. I don't want to follow anything that's triggering me because it was such a rocky year. So I need to like unplug from that and plug my energy into this. And I did that for a year. And in that year, I can't even tell you like what happened. I was like, it was like magic. Like literally, it's like we recreated, I was pregnant. So that was fun too. I was creating a human. And I genuinely, you've not been pregnant, but I genuinely believe like I get a lot of inspiration when I'm pregnant. And I think it's just because like extra blood flow. I don't really know what it is.
I think there's less blood flow.
Oh, I don't know. But every pregnancy I'm like, ultra inspired. I don't know why. Like, it's like my baby's like, do this, plug this. I don't know. But I felt like it was a really cool year, despite like I was literally waddling into my events, not breathing. And everyone's
we
like,
had a special chair for you in the back,
I was so freaking big, guys. I get up to like, I gained like 65 pounds when I'm pregnant. I'm like,
Did you really?
I think so. Let's see. Let me do the math. Yeah, it's at least 60 pounds.
Wow.
I know. Everyone's like, where? I'm like, straight in my ass. No, I don't know. I gain a lot of weight. I don't know why. And then I shrink down pretty quick. But anyways, I was like waddling into my events, and it was a crazy year, but it was a time for me to almost take a back seat to my business and have a whole nother perspective. And it was so cool because we created a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
Well, and it's interesting to see like when even team members, because we're all really, really close now, like even the trainees, the trainers, like the DKW staff, we're all really close. And whenever anyone comes to me and they're like, but did you see? Because this girl or so-and-so said this, or my assistant said this, and what the fuck? And like, they're so up in arms. And for like the trainer and trainee aspect, I sit there and I'm like, they haven't made it there yet.
Yeah.
They're still in like that trigger mode, which I'm like, I understand it. And I think it's really sweet because it comes from a place of like protecting, because for them, their lives,
they're pouring their little hearts and souls into this.
And their lives have literally made a total 180 from what it was to what it is now.
Like like I feel like our students and our trainers, they're like diehard. So
yes.
So if like somebody says something, they're like offended.
They're like, you want me to fuck shit up?
And it's almost like how I was like in the beginning, where I'm like, well, screw you. Yeah, you're just like,
look. When I went through my breakup, one of the students messaged me. She goes, "I'll cut off his pinky. Where is he?" I was like, nope, too far. I don't condone any kind of violence in any way, shape, or form. But I was also crying, laughing. I'll tell you who it is, because you'll be like, yeah, she would say that. But it was so funny when I heard it, and then part of me was like, you must really like me and be on board.
I think that's why when people that are no longer like inside of the education or whatever, it's like we form such a diehard bond with our students, because I decided like it wasn't just about like Natural Beauty Rose. I was like, okay, it's not, Natural Beauty Rose is great as a tool, but we got to shift these artist mindset. They got to be business women and men. They've got to like emotionally shift how our industry has taught us how to bring in money and this and that. Like it was just, there was a lot more to it. And so there's women that come to the events that you throw them the mic, and literally our mic is a pillow that we toss.
Literally, we throw it.
It's fun. And I'm surprised with how many girls can throw. So it's a good job. But literally, like, they'll get the mic and they just break down before they even say anything. And it's like, ooh, I don't want to save you, and I know you need me. And we just allow them that space and wait for that window. But
that's the thing. You have to be willing to step through that window. And if you don't, that's okay. We don't actually hate any ex-student or ex-employee. Like, we really don't.
If like, there was a minute where I was super triggered by everything, but now I'm so far over it that I literally am like, I feel bad for the ones that I never intentionally wanted to be a jerk. I never intentionally was trying to be rude. Was I not present to what my students needed? Yes, because I probably was overwhelmed, because when you have 10 students, then 30, then 40, then 50, then 60, and then hundreds. 300. I can't be buddy-buddy with everybody. And so I felt like the ones that left grudgingly that I really genuinely liked as people, it was not personal for me. It's because I was underwater and overwhelmed, and I can't expect them to understand that, because they're not doing what I'm doing.
And I think that's a really big thing. So even if you own, for like all of our salon owners or business owners, if you have someone that you train and you teach and kind of take under your wing, and then they leave and they're like, fuck you, first, definitely take accountability for yourself and why they're feeling that way. But also sometimes you have to realize it's not personal. Something that Danielle and I always say is like, we give people a chance to rise or sink themselves.
Right.
Like, she said earlier, here's what's expected. If you choose to not do it, dude, it's okay.
Right.
But then you can't be here. But that's also a choice that you made. You chose to not do these things. You chose to not show up. You chose not to learn. You chose not to grow. That's not a decision I made for you. That was a personal choice you made. So at the end of the day, when people come to me and they're like, yeah, but fuck her. And I'm like, no. I'm like, well, you need to realize, I'm like, it's not personal.
Right. And
it was a business decision.
I'm sure you've had to tell yourself a lot that
girl. Do you know Garrett and I, this was years ago now, we would go on a walk and talk sometimes twice a week. It would take about an hour to 2 hours. I would just cry the whole time. Yeah. Literally to the point.
It's heavy. It gets heavy.
Yes. To the point where he was actually going to ban the whole team from talking to me about certain situations. And if they did, he was going to fire him.
Yeah. Because
it was that bad. So I understand. Of all people, understand how highly emotional it can be, and how you just you literally want to like light their world on fire in the worst of ways. But I'm telling you, it's not worth it. The minute you realize, you know what? I woke up today, I showed up for myself. I showed up for my family. I showed up for my friends. I showed up for my team members. Like, I did all of that, and you go to bed and you're like, I fucking did it today. then everything else can be left at the wayside.
Right. And you have to set up like clear expectations with like, again, with your staff or with your students or whatever it is. So there's no weirdness. Even like just like recently with my trainers, I was like, okay, we need to organize this better so that you guys know what I expect out of you. And there's never any weird feelings. The only reason that get weird feeling is because there's a lack of communication there. Mm-hmm. And I even felt like before we had the academy, so I have a DKW Styling Academy. It's a 1.5-year program on the business marketing and sales and the tactics of natural beauty rose. And it has like color and cutting and photography and everything mixed in. Cause I was like, previous to that, it was a mastermind. And I look at it as almost like a personal trainer. Like you would show up and we would hype you up and we make you feel good and this, but it wasn't super organized and it was hard to consume all the content. And a lot of people were just showing up and then like some were doing the work and some weren't. And it was less organized. So I was like, ugh. So even as a business owner, I'm like, they're getting results, but it's more of like, I don't want them to just leave feeling warm and fuzzy. Like I want them to get more tactical results. And I was like, and that's why we created the academy. Cause I was like, if we give them phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you're going to learn this and this and this.
And it was a step-by-step of here's where you should be now. 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 If you're not here, and here, then something is wrong. And the really cool thing is, first off, it's been working amazing. It's so good.
Right.
But now even that also lets us see like, hey, why is this part really hard for everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay, we messed it up. We can adjust it. We need to fix it now. Mm-hmm. We need to fix and adjust. And it's so funny that, so one of our trainers, so all the trainers do this, they do something called a stack and they send it to me every day. And one of our trainers wrote about one of their employees. And they're basically like, I told my manager to do this and my manager didn't do it. And like, fuck my manager. And I'm sitting there reading this and I'm like, you ready for feedback? And I won't say who it was because you'll know immediately. But
I always say, you're the asshole. Like,
I was like, you ready for feedback? I go, here's how maybe your stack should have gone. I'm like, original story. What you want? Desired version, revelation. And by the end, I'm like, you were an asshole. And I was putting it like I statements. I'm like, I'm an asshole. Although I said this, I know with my storytelling ass and my need to like invent and embellish things, I painted this great grand story, but I didn't actually give them clear directions on what they were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So based off of their interpretation from my generalized story, they did what they thought. Now I'm mad because they didn't do exactly what I didn't tell them to do. So as it turns out, I'm a fucking asshole because I don't know how to communicate with people. Right. This trainer messaged me and goes, oh my God, ... I am an asshole. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, at least now you see it. I always tell people, like, you have to allow yourself to feel those emotions because it's natural, right? So let those emotions hit you and then take a minute to say, okay, what was my role in this? And I literally, that's how I now deal with things. I'm like, I get really irritated. And then I'm like, okay, take a step back. And why did this happen? Mm-hmm. And then try to figure it out. And I think a lot of times it's lack of wanting to actually take accountability for what you know. And it's almost funner just to be like, she's a da-da-da-da. Because it's easier to be mad and be like, oh,
take accountability.
Well, Danielle, I think you're stupid, than to be like, you know what? I was stupid and I was an a-hole.
If you have to take accountability, that means you might have to shift something in your business that maybe you don't want to do. Maybe that means you have to show up and train a little more. Like I've been guilty of that. I'm like handing off things and then I'm like, shit, Danielle, get back in the trenches. Like you want these results, then you got to train them. It's like hiring a personal assistant and just expecting, this is a funny story, but like my very first assistant, I was like, he was garbage and then nice guy, whatever. But I'm like, I think I was garbage. I wasn't a very good trainer. Like it was a mix of him. Like he didn't know, but I didn't give him any direction and I expected him to do things. And then when things got fucked up, I wanted to blame him, but really I should have just blamed myself because I had no training program of how to incorporate an assistant to what I was doing with my clients. So I realized in that moment, I was like, when he left and we didn't leave on weird terms, it was totally fine. And I was like, oh, he was the worst. And then I was like, but wait, how do I not repeat this? And if you, and we always talk about the hamster wheel, but the only way you can not repeat certain situations in your life is you have to be able to take a step back and give yourself feedback. If you don't, you will be in this weird karmic loop where you don't actually change.
And if you see things happening constantly in your life, it's like that girl who dates that same guy and then breaks up and then gets back with another guy and it's like the same guy.
And she's shocked
and it's
every
like
time.
The same guy she dated. Guy number 3 was just like guy number 2. Like it's ridiculous.
And she's like, why is the world after me? And you're
why
like,
are all men the same? Bitch, because you're dating the same kind of man. What do you mean? But it's so...
I'm just attracting it. No, you're refusing to change and look at yourself in order to attract the right man.
Exactly. And so, hey, look... pot calling kettle black here. I get it. I've been there. But I'm just saying. Like,
I do.
Look,
Every girl's been there.
I'm not throwing stones right now. Trust me, I've been there too. But I'm just saying, like, if you see the same occurrence happening again and again and again, there's only one common denominator, and it's you. You are the thing that has to change if you want a different outcome.
Right.
Because how you've been acting has given you exactly what you have right now.
Right.
So I hate to break it to you, you're the asshole. Title of this podcast.
I was going to give you a 5 there.
Yeah.
I was like, you're the asshole. If that's the title, I hope people will open it.
I think they should. I would open it.
So I just think you guys, I would challenge all of you guys to look at where you're making karmic loops in your life, because it's not just like in general. Like there's relationship issues, there's business issues, there's you have to be willing to measure things based off the result. And in order to get a better result, you have to take a step back, take accountability, and figure out how to fix the problem. And guess what? That's what you do. Life is about solving problems. And that's how you get ahead of the game, because you're like, okay, I figured that out. And somewhere along the line, it clicks that you're like, okay, I have to figure it out. And it becomes fun instead of like, oh, I don't want to look at that. It's scary. I don't want to, I'm not that person. I can't be that person. And then for me, I'm like, how do I become this person? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, how do I get out of my head about this?
Do you want to know the scary thing I just did? Man, I made a full-on budget. Fuck, that sucks. I literally said,
because you're getting a new house.
It's because I'm moving. Ta-da! Yeah, but I sat down and I'm like, all right, Tyler, you're responsible. So I went through and I'm like, because everything's on auto pay. I'm like, I don't know. I always have money. It just pays. But I sat down and I'm like, okay, what comes out, what day, when, out of what paycheck? Right. And then I sat and I'm like, okay, you shop a lot. Girl,
yeah, I know. I hate that. You know what I do? Well, this is really bad, but because I online shop a lot, obviously, especially with right now, I'm always like, but I returned that, so I kind of have a credit for this, but then I end up spending a little bit more. Yeah, no. That's like one area I'm like, I don't want to look at.
Yeah, but I will say, as I'm doing my budget, I almost, even though I'm really good with money, I did have that fear that I was like, oh, but do I want to look at this? But what if I don't like what I see? Then
But then you feel better when you do.
Dude, once I finished it, I was like, okay.
You're like feeling good.
I am feeling good about this.
And then it's less scary to make decisions like getting a new home. You know what I mean? Because I think we get stuck in this story of like, oh, I can't have this house. I can't do this. I can't do this. But maybe like even for Garrett and I, when I like literally sat him down and we went over like basically our income for like the last 6 months, that's when I was like, stop telling me we can't buy a house. Like, I'm over this conversation and I'm showing you the facts right now. So emotionally, you need to go somewhere else, because this is not working anymore.
And you grow a pair, sir.
Yeah, and you can't fight me on the facts right now. So we're doing this. And I had to put my foot down a lot of times in situations like that. But it's true. The facts don't lie. And I think we don't want to look at them. And sometimes when we do, we're kind of like, oh, well, I'm better off than I thought. Or you might be like, shh. So either way, I would challenge you guys to take accountability for where you're at and make a plan with where you want to go.
And take accountability for things you may have done and things you may not have done. Because it's not just about being like, oopsie, I did that, my bad. It's also about things that you don't do. Whether you've been the employee, whether you've been the ex-student, or whether you're the owner of whatever business and you're like, yeah, I'm pissed at my employees, but I never actually trained them. It's still on you.
Yeah.
So guys, thanks for being here for the Big Money Stylist Podcast. You can watch us at DKWstyling.com. If you ever have a topic that you want us to talk about, just DM us on Instagram. I feel like that's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, DM the Natural Beauty Row extension page, or because I don't check all my DMs, so sorry if I don't. But
I do.
You know what? I used to, and then like with my kids and everything, I kind of had like mommy guilt, and I stopped. That was like one thing I was like, I can't check all these things.
Well, there's also, we have a new BMS Instagram, so bms.naturalbeautyrows.
So
you can also
see
DM that one.
Yeah, and you can see like little clips of the podcast if you want to like see us live, you can go to that Instagram as well. And an update, we are still planning the convention for this year. It will be killer business marketing and sales, as well as pre-training and Natural Beauty Rows. So for those of you that have wanted to get into the education, I have a lot of people that actually have asked me about the online course. We only release it like 2 or 3 times a year. The next release won't be until November. So your next opportunity to join my education is at convention. It'll be in November in Dana Point, California. Get on my wait list if you're not on that at bigmoneystylist.com. All right, you guys, we will see you next week with another episode of the podcast.
Yeah.